Good evening. Thank you for watching. This is Beyond the Headlines with Bailey Hufstetler, and I am your host, Bailey Hufstetler. Very excited that you're joining us tonight. We are back in the studio again tonight with a very special guest, someone who I've known for a very long time, who I've done a lot of different things with, from theater to real estate to just being a friend and a family. I could say family. I could say that. But we've got Teresa Congioloso here with us in the studio tonight. She is running for State Senate District 1. And so she is here in the studio tonight with us. Teresa, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
We have done a lot of things together, so this is one to add to that list.
Exactly. Yeah, one of those things I'll always remember, and I'll share this little story really quick, and then we'll move on to the interview. But we were in a play together. It was actually probably, I guess, the first time I met you, I guess. We were in a play together, and it was Happy Days. I was Richie Cunningham, and you played my mom in that. And then during that run, I actually lost my mom during that, and you were just a key figure in that for me, helping me through that. I remember that very vividly. And then we went on to sell real estate together, and just done a lot of different things. So
yeah, were you like 14?
I was 14. Yeah.
14. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
So it's been a long time.
It
Because I'm
has.
28 now. So that's
Wow.
that's so. But anyway, good deal. Again,
And a
like
daddy,
I said,
yeah.
yes, of 3. Yes, and they're all at Church of God camp meeting this week, and they're there tonight, and I'm here with you. So I'm very excited that you're here. So thank you for coming. We're just going to jump right on in and just talk a little bit about your campaign, why you're running, and just to get some feedback from you on your race. So we're just going to start off with telling us a little bit about yourself, and then what motivated you to run for this seat.
Okay. I'm Teresa Congioloso. I've lived in East Tennessee for 35 years. I've been in a real estate for 31, almost 32 years. I've helped hundreds of families buy and sell throughout this region. A fun fact about me, Bailey, you may not even know, is that my roots are from the northwest corner of North Carolina, better known as the real Mayberry. Pilot Mountain, Mount Airy, that's where all my family is from. So I'm a mother, a grandmother. I'm a conservative Christian. And I am somebody who believes deeply in community service. I've served on the Ray County Planning Commission for 20 years, the Economic Development Board, the Equalization Board, Rotary Club, and several other organizations around Ray County. And why I decided to run? I decided to run because I believe that the people of District 1 deserve a senator who is first and foremost focused on the district. Somebody who listens more than they talk, someone who understands the challenges facing families, seniors, small businesses, and our schools. I don't see this as a stepping stone. I see it as an opportunity to serve.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you've done a little bit of everything, with it. We talked about theater, but you have really well known across the state about your real estate career. Your real estate is something that you have been doing for a lot of years, and you are, if I'm not, are you still the number one real estate agent in the state?
Well, it comes and goes.
Goes.
Those things come and go for the state.
Yeah.
I've definitely made the top 10 several times over the years, but I'm almost 32 years.
It was very successful. So with that, and then the Planning Commission, and the RETC, all of the organizations that you volunteered with. I know you do the Rotary, you do the pancake breakfast. I know that is a staple of yours because you're always selling tickets for that every year for the Strawberry Festival. But those experiences, real estate, and all of the nonprofit experiences you have, how has that prepared you for being a senator?
Well, I'm an independent entrepreneur, and I've been at the top of my field for many, many years, if not most. I've also been Businesswoman of the Year.
Yes.
That was pretty cool. So I think the real estate world is a world where there's no floor and there's no ceiling. And you wake up every single day unemployed. And as I heard earlier today, this morning, I have to eat what I kill. And that came from another realtor. I thought that was a very good analogy. I've signed paychecks, balanced budgets, managed employees, paid taxes, and navigated government regulation from this end. And I've seen firsthand the problems that we have today, housing affordability, infrastructure, property rights, economic development, and the impact that the government decisions have on everyday people. I think that my time on the Planning Commission and Economic Development has also prepared me for growth, infrastructure planning, zoning, and just responsible development altogether. And most importantly, life's taught me to listen. Whether helping families transition or being a caregiver for a loved one or helping the community organizations, I've learned that leadership begins with understanding people and solving problems.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And those pancakes at that breakfast are really good, by the way. Just saying. So that's what I always remember. Strawberry Festival that morning, I just remember you hustling and bustling for those tickets and selling those pancake breakfast tickets.
And I still take them up to the 911 center too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I do that.
So, and then just being someone who you have signed my paychecks before because I sold real estate for you. I can definitely say that in the real estate world, you did a really good job at taking me under your wing and teaching me, even though I'm not doing it anymore, because I cannot eat what I kill. I cannot wake up unemployed every morning, but you definitely.
But that's what it is.
It is, yeah. And but you took the time to really mold me, and I guess I do sell now with what I do because I also do sales at my job as well.
Okay.
So you did teach me a few of the tricks that I use there. So
cool. That's good to know.
Why do you believe that you're the best choice for voters in District 1?
Because I offer a combination of real world experience, community involvement, and independence. I'm not a career politician. I'm someone who's just spent decades building a business and working that business and serving my community. I believe that government should be accountable, transparent, and focused on serving the citizens, not the special interest groups. I get a real distaste about that. I have a long history of doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking. So I truly do believe that I am the most worthy person for this job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Going to go on down to specific topics now. So just district priorities. So your district, just tell the viewers really quick, just where I don't butcher it and mess it up. What district, what encompasses your district? What counties?
Okay, Ray, Meigs, McMinn, and Bradley.
Perfect.
Bradley
Awesome.
counties.
So a big district. What do you believe are the three biggest challenges facing District 1 today?
There's so many, but I think workforce availability in all fields, and this is not just a district problem. I think this is a U.S. problem, and partly because we give people food, housing, health care, cell phones, and we expect no accountability. So to me, that's part of the problem with our workforce, and everybody that you talk to is short of labor. They're not short of work, they're short of labor. And this one's that really gets me, and I think about like TVA and the people that have to be fit for duty. Working people have to be fit for duty in numerous ways, but the people that we're supporting don't have to be accountable for anything. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of yucky. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that. Infrastructure, growth is coming. There's no question about it. But the question is, do we shape it or do we allow it to shape us? And so we need work on our roads, our water systems, our sewer, our broadband, all of those things. And then third, the maintaining the public schools that prepare our students for success. The school choice program, a lot of that's in the news, has built some guardrails in what they call the hold harmless measures. But what happens 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Will our public schools be here for the next generation? And so I think that's something we should definitely not lose sight of.
Awesome. And then mentioning that school choice, I don't know if you got to see it, but I interviewed Monty Fritz, who's running for governor of Tennessee. I interviewed him last week. Great interview, and he talked a lot about school choice and the voucher program and what his plans are for that, in the future if he gets elected to the governor's seat. But if elected, what would be your top legislative priority during your first year in office?
Well, just being completely realistic, I don't have one top priority. I have spent the last year in all 4 counties at different times, like talking to people, identifying issues and problems in different areas. And also, you have to factor in that there's probably many issues and bills that are still laying there from this year's legislative session. And so primarily, after the primary election, assuming, I'm going on in January, I would spend the remaining months preparing for the upcoming season by carefully reviewing the proposals and studying the issues and those that are likely to come before the Senate in 27. I also like to meet with the experts on the subjects, the local leaders, educators, business owners, farmers. I've talked with many farmers in my journey, and that's been very informative. Community stakeholders, because I believe that their input is important in what's going on, and I want to go straight to the horse's mouth, so to speak, and find out from their perspective, how does this affect you? I think good decisions require good information, and I believe it's important to hear from those that are affected before I ever cast a vote for anything. Of course, I would seek out the slated funding that people get every year, as well as look for new opportunities for more funding for different projects.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to, just for the sake of time, we're going to move on to talking about the economy and jobs. So Tennessee continues to experience growth. How can District 1 benefit from that growth while protecting local communities?
I'm not sure. Is that something I have
number
already?
7.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. So we skipped one.
Yep.
Okay. I think we should be proactive in growth patterns and seeking businesses that add value to our community. Growth can be tremendous if it's managed correctly. So we should be responsible in our investments and job creation, while also ensuring that developments pay for their fair share toward infrastructure needs. And, that statement comes a lot from the inquiries from data centers that we're hearing a lot of. But overall, growth should improve the quality of life for the existing residents who already live here.
Perfect. Awesome. What policies would you support to attract new businesses and create jobs in Northeast Tennessee?
Definitely investing in their infrastructure, expanding the workforce training, strengthening career and technical education, and improving broadband access, reducing the unnecessary regulatory burdens, and creating an environment where entrepreneurs and small businesses can thrive. While I believe incentives may be necessary in some cases, we also need to be mindful not to give away the store to anybody who rears its head. Corporate welfare is a big deal and should not take precedence over feeding our children or taking care of our veterans. I heard this morning we gave $30 million to Starbucks for them to move their headquarters to Nashville. $30 million incentive.
Wow.
Did we really need that? I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So going on, you mentioned big corporations. So obviously, small businesses are the backbone of any local community, especially. Um, how would you help small businesses that are struggling with rising inflation and workforce shortages?
I have a couple of ideas. As a small business owner myself, I certainly understand the challenges that we all face, and we need to reduce unnecessary regulation, strengthen our workforce programs, support vocational education, and make it easier, not harder, for the entrepreneurs to succeed. Um, why not have some of that Starbucks money for our small businesses instead of one corporate company? I think government should be a partner, not an obstacle.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, moving on to something that is obviously very important to, I know, you and me and a lot of other individuals in our community. That's education. So, what changes, if any, would you like to see in Tennessee's public education system?
I'd like to see a stronger support for our teachers, expanded career and technical education opportunities with greater local flexibility. Every student doesn't need a four-year degree. We need value. We need to value the skilled trades and workforce pathways just as much as transitional college tracks. I mean, if you think about it, our tradespeople in this world are diminishing by the day, and we can't get enough people to work in those fields anymore. I just want to see public schools especially preserved for the next generations.
Yeah. And I can say, too, I'm glad that you mentioned that. One thing that I really remember going through public school, because I went through public school my entire school. I didn't go to private. I went to public school. And one of the things that I remember so vividly, especially in high school, was the push for four-year college education. And that was like they, it was a really big, like, if you don't go to a four-year college, then you're not going to be successful. And that was a really big push that they had. And so we did lose that workforce development for the trades. And I think hopefully they're starting to see that shift. And maybe, if you get elected, you can help with that. Because I do see, I have seen some changes here lately of more of a push for the trades and in the technical side. But I do remember being in public school and just remembering, hearing that big push for, if you don't go to a four-year college, you're not going to be successful, and which is not the case.
I know a lot of college graduates who absolutely are not successful.
Yeah, well, and I know
But-
college graduates that are still looking for jobs.
Yeah.
In the field that they graduated from. If they got a bachelor's degree in. So, it's very interesting to see.
I love it that we have that TCAT school now. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see us develop that even more.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to be good.
yeah.
It's going to be real good. How should the state address teacher recruitment and retention?
Competitive compensation, which I think they're not bad at this moment. Bonus structures. I've heard some stories about how difficult it is to keep teachers who teach like the special ed kids. It's difficult, and a lot of teachers nowadays, if they don't have a master's degree, I mean, it's almost like they're nothing, and I'm not for that at all. So I think we should reduce some of the administrative burdens. We need to reduce the unnecessary testing that has been handed down, and sometimes our teachers are just swimming in their testing requirements. Always safer classrooms, more classroom support. And as a culture, I think that we need to respect teachers more as professionals. They deserve our support and the accountability.
Awesome. And then, what role should school choice play in Tennessee education?
Parents deserve options. And I stand with the parents, not the politicians. And I believe that public schools remain a pillar in our society, especially in rural Tennessee. So, any school choice program to me that's receiving our tax dollar money should also have some accountability and transparency. And that's been one of the biggest issues for me is, we just give them all the money and, hey, by the way, you don't have to do what we do.
Yeah.
They don't have to follow the same rules. And again, I just want to see the public schools remain strong.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, so moving on to healthcare. Healthcare is a very big topic around campaign season, political season, because obviously it affects all of us. We all need healthcare. So access to healthcare remains a really big concern in many rural areas. What solutions do you support to help that?
I think telehealth expansion for follow-ups and even mental health would be good. I think our rural hospitals just need more support. Do you realize that, I believe this is correct, they have like a 1 to 3% operating margin?
Oh, wow.
I mean, and many even report losses.
Yeah.
Our local hospitals, definitely not making money.
Yeah.
I think a lot of rural hospitals are barely getting by. So, we need to reduce barriers that prevent people from receiving timely care. And one of the things I mean by that is like maybe expand the non-emergency medical transportation. I heard a story just a couple of days ago about, somebody couldn't get an ambulance. And it was because the ambulance was busy taking somebody to a doctor's. I mean, what was it? Not a doctor's appointment. It was something non-emergency.
A non-medical transport, probably.
And so it's like maybe we need an expansion. Maybe we need dedicated, ambulances for that type of thing. So it's just one of the things I'd thought about. But it is concerning that our rural hospitals, local hospitals operate on such a small margin, and we just need to be aware. I don't know what can be done about that, but that's something that I'm not going to lose sight of.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and then what can the state do to improve healthcare access for seniors and families in District 1?
Expand transportation options is one. Community-based healthcare services, increase access to primary care, and ensure that rural communities maintain their local healthcare facilities. We can't lose our hospital, and and there are some places where they can lose a hospital, and we just can't do that.
Yeah. And you hear, stories all the time of rural hospitals closing, and even then, like looking, back, Dayton used to have, for I don't know the technical term, but where you could deliver babies in Dayton at the hospital and things like that, and we don't have that anymore, right. You have to go out of town for those services, and it would be really nice to see. I mean, me and my wife are done having kids. 3 is enough. 3 is enough. Dear Lord, please, 3 is enough. But it would be nice to see those services being able to be offered. And I will say too, with the the ambulance issue, there's a lot of times where there are there's 1 or 2 ambulances to cover the entire county. In which that, the ambulance service is privately owned. It's not owned by the hospital. It's not owned by, the county. It's privately owned by a private business owner, and a lot of that is staffing shortages on why that is the case, that could be, but, and other issues as well. But it would be nice to see some other options for that, for more transportation, because there are times where, it's really hard, especially in our rural areas, far deep off of, all the way deep in Spring City, out on the lake somewhere. If there's an issue, it may take an ambulance 20 minutes to get out there. You know what I mean? So it's just, I would like to see that.
In my travels, I've heard a story about it took an hour and a half for somebody to get an ambulance, and then the wife had an accident, and then the gentleman finally just put her in the car and took her to the hospital. Yeah. Yeah. So that's not good. That's
no, it's
good.
not. It's not. So
yeah.
How should Tennessee address the growing demand for long-term care and dementia-related services?
Well, as the population ages, this issue is becoming more and more important. I'm a baby boomer myself, and I'm at the younger end of that group. So the time really is now. There's a lot of people above me in the baby boomer era that are experiencing these things like right now. I think we need to give support to the caregivers, maybe expand in-home based services, strengthen our healthcare altogether, and ensure that families do have a quality long term option. It's difficult. It's very difficult to manage. I know your grandmother was had
Yeah.
dementia, but just expansion, trying to keep them at home if you can.
Yeah.
That's not always possible, but maybe some programs that could help with that.
Yeah.
And I think there's some things out there now where even family members can be paid. You probably know a lot more about that than
Yeah.
I do. Family members can be paid to, care for their loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely there's options, because healthcare in general is so expensive. There comes a point in time, and I, obviously, I run a memory care community. So that's, I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's what I do now. So I'm an executive director for a memory care community, and we see all the time. We see families who, they try it at home, and and it gets too much, but then they can't afford it.
Right.
To bring them. So they have to keep them at home. There's resources out there, veteran benefits and, aid and attendance and things like that. But, a lot of times, that doesn't help, because we live in a generation now where, and I don't know if you'd include yourself in that, but, we live in a generation now where you were told that Medicare and Medicaid was going to pay for everything. That's not the case. Medicare and Medicaid's not paying for everything. And it's, it's really hard. I know I remember the process that it took whenever my grandmother, whenever she ended up at the nursing home, and I became power of attorney, and that story's a long story, but I had to be the one to help get her Medicaid for her to stay in the nursing home, because she couldn't come live with me at that point. And so I didn't have a place for her to go, and the red tape and the loopholes that I had to go through just to be able to get her Medicaid. This woman couldn't walk. She could not live on her own, take care of herself. But because she did well on what they call the BIMS test, which is something that they do to qualify you for, cognitively, because in the state of Tennessee and Medicaid, you have to qualify health and financial. And so, with that, one of those things with the health part is you have to do really poor on what they call the BIMS test. And since she tested well on that, mind you, she couldn't walk, she couldn't do anything on her own, but the state said, you can live on your own. You can take care of yourself, all because she was able to pass that test. And so I ended up having to go through loopholes just to get her Medicaid, because if you look, like, nursing home rates are $300-$400 a day for you to privately pay to stay in a nursing home. So you have to have Medicaid to live in a nursing home. You just do. So I'll get off that soapbox, because I'm very passionate about that, and we can.
Right.
And I'm not running for office.
Well,
you are.
and that's your daily too, isn't
So,
it?
Yep, it is. It is. So, move right along. Let's jump down, just because we're running out of time, and I don't want to. I know you've been at a meeting and you're probably hungry and ready for. So we're gonna jump down to.
I left home at 6 a.m.
So yeah, you've been on the go all day. So. Let's go down to, we'll do public safety. So we'll start at the notes for 19, and then we'll go from there. What measures would you support to improve public safety in Tennessee?
Well, law enforcement for sure. I would like to see some improved mental health services. That's a big passion for me. I'd like to see some stronger penalties or punishments for repeat offenders, because a lot of the law enforcement people say, "Oh, it's the same people over and over and over." Well, why are we doing that? Why can't we get them off that hamster wheel? I would again support more, or more harsh punishments for violent crime and other crime. So because I feel like too many times we just smack somebody on the wrist and send them back out to the street, and they're out there doing the same thing over and over. So, harsher punishments. Other countries don't put up with some of this. I mean, if you steal something, they cut your hand off. That might be a little bit strong, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're too relaxed because we're I don't know. Are we just trying to? What are we trying to protect? People that are violent criminals? I'm not sure why we are as soft on them sometimes as we are. I do remember a friend who had a vehicle stolen, and it was like a few weeks later, after court and everything went on, this guy just walks by the house and goes, "Oh, hey." What?
Yeah.
You stole my vehicle and you're just walking by saying hello?
Yeah.
I mean, we just need harsher punishments and for people that do these crazy things, and maybe they'll think twice about doing it the next time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
and I think that we need to provide our communities too, from a state level, the resources, maybe to do some preventative crime maintenance, but try and head things off before they become criminals.
yeah. I would know that a lot of times, the conversation always comes up. You even mentioned it. On how they go to jail and they're back out and then they're right back in again because they're doing the same stuff. I would like to see some sort of rehabilitation. And I think that we're getting there. I think Ray County is on a track where they're gearing towards that. They provide education to them while they're in jail and things like that. So I think that we're on the right track. But would like to see some sort of programs that will help them, because especially if you have individuals who've been in jail for a long period of time, and that's all they know. They've been whatever, and then they come back out and they're just expected to just learn how to live in society again without the tools for success. And I think the state, even local level, could do a better job with preparing them more for when they get out. That way that they know how to live in society again. Living in jail is a lot different than living out in the society. Then you've got to have a job to pay bills, and a lot of the times, especially if you have a felony on your record, not a lot of places are going to hire you. Things like that. So there's definitely room for improvement. I think we're on the right track. I just think that there's a whole lot more steps that we need to take to get there. So, all right. Moving on down to rapid fire questions really quick. So starting with your notes for 25, what's one issue that you think isn't receiving enough attention from state leaders?
This is kind of a touchy subject, but the workforce, and again, this is something that I've picked up in my travels around the district. The workforce that's being stripped away from the tradesmen and the farmers. And don't get me wrong, I completely support the president's and the current administration's illegal immigration policies. But I would like to see something that might assist expediting a citizenship for maybe those that have clean work records and they're just working and paying their taxes and being productive citizens. Because what we're doing is we're, by deporting, and I know that mostly we're deporting people that do have like history or criminal history or something, but there's a lot of people that are just working and trying to provide for their families. And so I would like to see something that might expedite the citizenship or maybe a different type of work visa. They have an H-2A visa program for seasonal workers, but that doesn't really support everyone, like builders or, the farmers that are working year round. And so, I talked to some guys a couple of days ago, and they were like, we would be glad to hire any and all Americans who would show up here for us. But they don't. And so, labor is a huge issue for some of our farmers. And I'm not talking about farmers that go over here to the farmers market. I'm talking about farmers that are exporting millions and millions of pounds of produce or milk or, grain, whatever. Um, those people are feeding us as a society, and they're really struggling with labor right now, and the immigration is putting a little bit of a squeeze on them. And so I don't think that, like I said, I'm 100% supportive of the illegal immigrants being deported. Um, but there are some that deserve an expedited track to, just keep working and being productive in life. And I think we're trying to just lump them all together, and that's I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah. Two more questions. One, I want to go back up really quick because I skipped it and didn't mean to. Number 20, for your notes for that.
Okay.
How should the state address the opioid and fentanyl crisis?
That's as big as the Grand Canyon for sure.
I figured that would be your response.
Yeah,
So.
just more aggressive against traffickers, I think, and then expanded treatment and recovery options, better prevention programs. And then, something I feel really strong about is the support for the families, because, a lot of times if these kids are growing up in this environment where the opioids and fentanyl and all the stuff is going on, they know nothing else. They know nothing else, and so I'm old enough, I'll do that now. So I would like to see more support directed at the families of these people as well, so that we can stop that generational problem. Just like with the welfare, and people, they grow up with it. That's all they know. Hey, it's my turn. I'll go get my check now, and I'll go get my food stamps now. When there's nobody there to teach them that, hey, what about a job, and look how much better you could live. So yeah, it's my take on that.
My biggest thing is that we if we had more actually truly faith-based organizations, because at the end of the day, I don't care what everybody has their own opinion, but you're not going to be able to overcome something as powerful as an addiction problem without Jesus. You're never going to be able to overcome it. And that was something that, my mom was addicted, and you knew that. And I think that if I would have, and if the family, if we would have done, and, obviously this, happened over, 15, 20 years ago at this point, if we would have done more to show her the love of Jesus, I think that she would have been able to overcome, hopefully, more of that addiction. And that's where we lose track, I think. This is just my opinion. I think that we focus on a science way to get them to get them unaddicted, or to fix them, and we are so far, we're so far away from the only thing that can rip them from the clutches of addiction is the Lord Jesus Christ, and I stand firm on that.
I believe that as well. And you often hear people that do recover will refer back to their faith as, this is why, because of the faith. And I think that you are very fortunate that you had other people in your life, like your grandmother and your dad, who could show you that, hey, there is a different way. But there's so many out there that, both the parents are addicted, the grandparents are addicted. They have nobody to show them the way. And so I think,
and it's so easy, because
I'd like to see more support for the families, and faith-based would be great.
Yeah. And there's, addiction, it is a generational curse. And so, it's very easy. You see it time and time again. Parents, grandparents, you see it time and time again. So it is definitely, in order to break that, generational curse, it's going to take the Lord to be your strength. And that's that. So one last question really quick, and then we will close out tonight. But how would you how do you differ? Why, just give your 30-minute curtain speech or 30-minute elevator pitch on how you differ from your opponents and how you are going to how you're going to just make a difference for the state.
A few different things come to mind, and I think I have a very consistent and solid background of real world experience and leadership, and I've spent decades serving my community already, building a business, solving the problems, and my campaign is not about. Again, I'm not just looking for a political ladder to climb. I'm looking to serve. I think I have proven that I am responsible, and that it's not, again, it's just not a political ambition for me to climb a political ladder. I'm truly going to serve. I differ from my other opponents in that maybe they are more not, or one of them more a career politician. The other one not so much a career politician, but a politician more than me. So I'm just not a politician. I'm a business person, and I approach things from a business perspective. And again, I have to ask myself, like, is this good for the community? Is this, is it helping? Are we hurting? And so, not sure if that answers that or not. But one of the things that I've thought about whenever I was working on like your little list of questions was that I can make a promise to my voters that I'll never forget who sent me to Nashville and for what. I believe that sometimes politicians do lose the connection with the constituents. I've seen and heard that quite a bit with my travels over the last year. So I'll always be accessible, and I'll take the time to listen to people before I jump. I don't know everything, don't pretend to know everything, and I want to make my position more of a partnership with my district than a dictatorship. Yeah. I've said this over and over. My vision is to take the district's agenda to Nashville, not bring Nashville's agenda back to the district.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Well, Teresa, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being on with us tonight.
Thank you.
This election is in the August primary for you, for the Republican primary for State Senate District 1, and that's happening in August. Still have time to look at your platform, look at your information, and you've got a Facebook page. Do you have a website as well?
I do. It's pretty basic. There's not really a lot in the website, unless somebody wants to donate money.
Yeah.
there's a donation spot there.
Okay.
But yeah, and early voting starts July 17th, and I think goes through August 1st.
Okay.
And because in Tennessee, most candidates are Republican, and so the primary is extremely important. And I can't stress enough how going to vote is extremely important. I had some notes about some of that, like, not enough people vote. I think like 10% of the registered voters, which is nothing, hardly anybody. And so it's so important that people vote and get out and do your part. You think, oh, well, they're doing it. No, they're not doing it. Yeah. You've got to do it. Yeah. Everybody has to do it. And so please get out and vote. I think there might still be time to register or change your registration if you need to, but July 17th through August 1st is early voting, and that's when you can just go down to the courthouse and vote, anytime you want. And if you are voting on August 6th, you go to your designated precinct. So
Perfect.
just put that in there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and thank you for coming. So,
Thank you.
just a few more updates really quick before we finish off tonight's show. We've got the county executive debate that is next week at the Ray County High School auditorium. That's at 7. You can also watch that live on our YouTube channel and also our Facebook page as well. So please make sure that you come out for that. Calvin Sneed is going to be moderating that event, and we're very excited about that. So please either come on out or join us on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel to view that. There's still time to submit questions as well. If you go to our Facebook page, there is a form attached on our Facebook page for you to be able to submit questions. We've had quite a bit of good questions submitted already. That cutoff is going to be this week because we are going to be meeting with our moderator to go over those questions and to make sure that that all the questions are represented in some sort of fashion to where we can get a good mix for you to be able to get a good view for all of the candidates. Again, thank you so much for watching tonight, and God bless Ray County, God bless Tennessee, and God bless America.